Okay, everybody, thank you for being here. And Rotrina, I will turn things over to you. Oop. You're on mute still.
Oh, my apologies. I should know by now with doing all the Zooms.
I always do it.
Yes, but thank y'all for being here. My name is Rotrina Campbell, and I am the civic engagement organizer for Common Cause. And I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. Give me one moment.
I really like that painting behind you. What is that a common cause?
No, it's a long story, but from my husband ended up getting it. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's a great image.
Thank you. Okay. All right. All right. So last time, I know, Rachel, when we met, we more so definitely was talking about our voting maps and that they were found to be to have some partisan gerrymandering going on in those voting maps. So basically it puts us to where we are today. So I'm going to just do some catching up all the way where we are today, which is our, we're doing our Map Our Future tour, People Over Politics, to discuss our Moore v. Harper case that's going on. So going to talk about that a little bit. So basically in 2019, the North Carolina Supreme, first off, has anyone heard of Moore v. Harper? I did not ask that. Okay.
I bet most people have not.
Okay.
And in fact, right. you may even need to define what gerrymandering is. But I know your program does that, but I don't think that most people have heard. I think occasionally there's a headline about Moore v. Harper, but most people have not heard of it.
Okay. So let's talk about gerrymandering for a moment. So basically gerrymandering is the manipulation of voting districts to benefit a political party or class. In North Carolina, the state legislature has the power to draw our voting districts for the U.S. Congress and the North Carolina state legislature. The governor cannot veto the maps. So basically, I mean, for decades, it has happened on both ends. The party in power has gerrymandered our voting districts. And basically, that's what happened to lead us to where we are in this, well, today for the Moore v. Harper, but just wanted to give some back end on that and how we got here. So I'll get into some of that, and at the end, definitely ask any questions that you may have. I'm gonna, okay. Just trying to get rid of these. So, okay, let me go back. So basically, we're gonna go all the way through how we got to this point. And I'm gonna show some maps as well. So basically in 2019, North Carolina case Rucho v. Common Cause, the Supreme Court said that federal courts couldn't review partisan gerrymandering, but the state courts could, based on provisions in state constitutions. So based on the constitution of the state court, they can review these gerrymandering maps, or these maps that were created, and find them to be maybe unconstitutional to the state's constitution. Each state has its own constitution as well. So basically, that's what happened. So the state courts did. Our state courts in North Carolina in February, that just happened this year, February 2022, the North Carolina Supreme Court struck down the North Carolina General Assembly's congressional and state legislative maps, and they found them to be partisan gerrymanders violating the state constitution. So that's where we are now with the maps that started out. The state legislature drew the maps Maps are drawn every 10 years after the census. So every 10 years, the state legislature draws the map. And that was done, but then it was found to be have partisan gerrymanders and violated the state constitution. I just want to make sure we're all up to speed of where we're at. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit, and this is about our North Carolina congressional map, and I'm going to show what the map was before the North Carolina State Supreme Court stepped in, and what they were after the North Carolina Supreme Court stepped in. So we're going to talk a little bit about maps here. So basically, this is the original map that was drawn by North Carolina General Assembly. In a state, we are considered a purple state. North Carolina is considered a purple state. We could go either way in terms of Republican, Democrat, but with this map that was struck down by North Carolina North Carolina State Supreme Court, it was drawn to have 10 Republicans and 4 Democrats, which does not represent what our state truly is.
I think our state, in terms of voters, in terms of Democratic and Republican voters, is almost half and half, right? Like a little bit more Democrat, but almost half and half. So a state that's drawn so that it winds up being 10-4 doesn't really reflect that
The
half
state.
and half.
Exactly, and the people in this state, that means it could be something going on there, because it's not even representing the people that live in this state. And compared to how people vote in this state as well, like you said, Rachel. And basically, so in the 3 largest counties here, you have Mecklenburg, Wake, and Guilford. So basically, the court found that the cracking and packing of Democratic voters in Guilford, Mecklenburg, and Wake counties had ripple effects throughout the map. So that's something that was found. I do want to say in Mecklenburg and Wake, it would at least have to be split, I'll say once, because they're too large. As you can see here, you only can have roughly 745,000 in each district, and Mecklenburg and Wake is just too large. But here they have Mecklenburg split 3 ways when it doesn't necessarily have to be split 3 ways. You can see that in Wake, and then they have Guilford split 3 ways as well. So basically, the North Carolina Supreme Court ruling, they found it to be unconstitutional beyond a reasonable doubt. This is going back to where we were and talking about how it got here. So basically, that map that they created for this term for our voting districts basically went to the court, and the North Carolina Supreme Court, and the North Carolina Supreme Court found that it to be unconstitutional beyond a reasonable doubt. The General Assembly violates the North Carolina Constitution when it deprives a voter of his or her right to substantially equal voting power on the basis of party affiliation. The trial court specifically found that the General Assembly diminished and diluted the voting power of voters affiliated with one party on the basis of party affiliation. That is gerrymandering. So, and it's the first time that it was found in this court case and put down in this court case written that it was found to be definitely partisan gerrymandering, and it seemed to weigh heavily to the Republicans for this map. So this is
sorry, I was going to interrupt with one question real quick. Anne asked, can you tell us who initiated the lawsuit? Did the Democratic Party or an individual? She's asking how to understand how it got to court.
Yes, well, Common Cause is one of the plaintiffs. We're one of the plaintiffs in that case. Our own Tyler Day, he's not on here today. We have another presentation, so unfortunately he wasn't able to make this one, but we're both doing one tonight. But he was actually one of the witnesses on that court case. So we were one of the plaintiffs in that court case.
Was it also League of Women Voters and And I think there was another, like maybe NAACP.
Well, that's what it was initially.
The original group?
Yes, it was. And then it's kind of a long list of things there. And then ultimately for this one end up being well, the Root well, that's Root Common Cause, but it ended up being Common Cause. And definitely, yes, it was the League of Women Voters that was a part of that next case.
I think there, and I think there are a number of these cases that have had, I mean, North Carolina has a history of having cases about gerrymandering that go past any party's ascension in the legislature, I guess. It seems like it happens here a lot. And it's a bunch of community, it seems like it's usually a number of community groups that that take the legal action.
Yes. Yes, that is true.
Thank you for that question.
You're welcome. And so here is the special masters. So basically the special masters is the courts struck down that first map that was created. And then they had a special master. So basically bringing someone in to draw the map. This map was approved by the courts. And which with this map, it would most likely see the seat allocation would be 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans. So this is the new map that has been drawn that we are currently using at this moment.
And can you say how many different elections this affects?
It will just be this election at the next year because this is a remedial map. I think next year they'll be able to redraw this map.
Okay.
So it may be different for 2024. And also in the new congressional map, Wake and Mecklenburg counties are only split once that we had talked about a little earlier. And Guilford County is kept whole in this new map. I mean, it's not perfect, but you know, it's better than what we had. So I'm gonna go into also the proportionality of the maps, like the one that was struck down received a 11. This is out of 100 for proportionality. And the new map that was approved received a 94 out of 100 for proportionality throughout the state and what that looks like for the voting districts. So I just want to.
That's like a grade.
That's a grade. So both of them are out of 100.
Wow, that's a really big difference.
Yes. And also want to talk about the partisan bias. The one that was struck down, the original congressional plan that was struck down was 14.7% leaning Republican. The special master's congressional plan end up being 0.9%. So more in that balance, more in the middle there, as you can see, to have more of the balance, really of what closer to what North Carolina represents. I think I have some questions. I can get to them in a little, or I can go ahead now and answer some of those in the chat maybe. I don't know, Rachel, if you could, or maybe.
I think we did get them.
Oh, okay.
We got those questions. I think they were the ones that I read to you. Yeah.
Okay.
From what I can see, unless you got anything different than I did.
Oh, no, I didn't. Thank you so much. I didn't want to pop up the question. It's okay. Thank you. So basically, the state legislature is, a slate of leaders unhappy. They was unhappy with the changes on the gerrymandered congressional map. So the map I just talked about, unhappy with the new map that was adopted. So they decided to appeal the case, and that's when they decided to appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court under what is called the independent state legislature theory. So it is definitely seen to be one of the gravest threats to American democracy today. It's basically saying that no other state, so I'm gonna just read it all. I know you can see it, but in Moore v. Harper, North Carolina lawmakers appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court under this independent state legislature theory, and basically argued that no other state body, including the state Supreme Court, has the power to restrict, I'm sorry, let me do this. There we go. So basically, oh, I'm so sorry. That's me. I don't know why. There we go. Okay, has the power to restrict the legislature's ability to set voting rules, specifically ones allowing legislatures to gerrymander the state. So I just want that to sit in. Basically, no checks and balances over voting rules, over maps. So basically, they would be able to decide how they want to draw maps. And no one could check them, because at the current moment, not even the governor can veto any of the maps that are drawn. So now you have, so you go to the state Supreme Court, but they don't even want the state Supreme Court to have any ability or any, just restrict their power.
Yeah, so it seems like where we have these branches of government that are supposed to balance each other's power, be able to hold each other in check. I guess they're arguing that at the state level, that the state legislature should have absolute power, and that the state courts should not be able to tell the state legislature or hold the state legislature in check.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is what happened in here. Our state Supreme Court said that the maps were not fair.
Mm-hmm.
The legislature is trying to argue to the Supreme Court that the state Supreme Court can't tell them what to do.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. And that's the Moore v. Harper case. That's where we're at right now. They will probably take up the case maybe next year, where they'll probably hear the case. So I'll talk more about that. But yeah, we're doing all of this work to definitely get let people know what's going on and get involved, because we think that's important. We're trying to have as many conversations as possible about this. So definitely please get the word out, but I will talk more about that and how we can do more. So basically, what people should know about Moore v. Harper: Moore could let politicians manipulate our elections. Moore could let politicians undermine your vote. And Moore could remove checks and balances, handing near unrestricted power, like we just said, to set federal election rules to the state legislature, cutting out the governor and state courts. Like I said, the governor already cannot veto the maps. So now cutting out the governor and the state courts. So this is what they're trying to do. And like we said, where's the checks and balances in this? There would not be any.
Was there a time when the governor could veto the legislature's maps, or was that always something that was out of the governor's hands?
As far as I know, it has been out of the governor's hands. But I will definitely follow up on that question. I know it's been in place, that I know for a while now. So I don't know if there ever was really a time where he could. So I would even have to, that's a great question.
Okay.
So what are the harms, which we've been talking about? Moore could make it easier for state politicians to create barriers to vote, because they would be setting the election laws on how they want people to vote. And mind you, not only that, you're talking about just the congressional maps. So it's like, are we supposed to have two different elections? One for congressional that, oh, they cut out early voting, or they cut out Sunday voting. And then you have something else for your local elections in your state, in your state elections, right? So basically they could draw rigged voting maps. I mean, they can decide if they want to draw a map every year. Oh, we don't like who got elected. Okay, let's draw a new map, cast doubt on fair election results. More could purge voters from voting rolls, cuts to popular, which I just talked about, early voting options, and fewer protections against voter intimidation. So basically, we always say, like, if you're ever in an elevator, I don't know if you're going to be in an elevator and anyone's going to ask you about Moore v. Harper, but basically this is what we say, like in 30-second pitch. If Moore's abuse of power succeeds, state legislatures would be free to manipulate federal elections and state courts couldn't stop them. So that's pretty much the bottom line of it all. But I do want to say, all 50 states, we're talking about in all 50 states, the state Supreme Court Chief Justices, they oppose this. They're like, no, all 50 state Supreme Court Chief Justice from both sides of the aisle are urging SCOTUS to reject our U.S. Supreme Court to reject North Carolina lawmakers' arguments and more. So they're like, no, basically this is going too far. Because, I mean, you have, not all states, our state, I mean, on both ends wouldn't be good, you know, for any party. You're talking about any party having absolute control with no checks and balances on how they want to draw our maps or how they want to have elections. So I just want to point that out. Definitely, like I already said, it's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about right or wrong. So we've all become used to partisan, but this case, as I've been saying, it just goes too far. So what you said, Rachel, earlier, I mean, it's always been attacks on checks and balances, and they're just not new. I mean, for decades, it's, you know, been something going on, some type of attack on our checks and balances. Even in, well, this was circled the 2016-2017, unhappy with 2016 elections, North Carolina lawmakers launched failed efforts to pack and crack courts, gerrymandered judges, and reduced judicial terms. So, I mean, it just goes, you know, on and on. But you know what? We always fight back. And that's what it takes. It takes everyone. It takes all of us. That's why we're trying to speak to as many people as possible. And no, what we will say is, like, I know some people concern is, well, we don't pick U.S. Supreme Court justices, but we do have the option when we go and vote who we know will respect and still hold up this checks and balances. Still believe that government should have checks and balances. I mean, it's been put in place since we, you know, been formed. There's checks and balances of our government. So that's what we definitely say when you go to that ballot box. You know, that's because, you know, when I know some people are like, well, what if this passes? That's why we say always go, you know, think of that voting box, who you're going to vote for, and are they going to hold up these checks and balances? If it goes either way, but you know, who you have in your state and who's representing you, you know. So, but that's what we do. We fight back, we rally, we do press conferences. I mean, so that's what we're doing. We're really getting this out. Act, you know, as you're out and about, as I know sometimes it's now it's the big thing of, you know, forums. I mean, ask this question. Ask them how candidates feel about Moore v. Harper. You know, this is the time to definitely ask those questions. So in North Carolina, we know more means more for the few and less for the rest. Basically, like Rachel, you mentioned earlier, more is the accumulation of a 10-year effort by North Carolina lawmakers. I mean, through this case, some politicians are trying to make it even easier for state legislatures to suppress the vote, draw gerrymander election districts, and cast doubt on our election results. So it's definitely time to fight back, as I already mentioned, of ways we can. We have more ways, and put people over politics, which is what it should be. And I also want to say with this that this case doesn't just affect North Carolina. It is like a more Roe v. Wade, where, you know, it could be a trickle effect, because if North Carolina can be able to, if they say, oh, North Carolina is able to draw their districts, congressional districts, however they choose, I mean, what other states are going to be running to do the same thing and have no checks and balances, because it would be on the state. So this is just not North Carolina. I mean, we just had our deputy director in Alabama talking about this. So it's definitely national. And what happens in North Carolina could definitely affect the nation, all the states. So I do want to point that out. So this is some of the work that we're doing throughout basically August through October, which is what we're doing now, People and Powerful Discourse. Basically, we're just trying to educate the public, speak to voters, and amplify our stories of what's at stake with more, basically talk about more. Then we have November through December ahead of the argument. We plan to have some big events and actions in North Carolina and nationally. Like we say, we've already started to branch out and go to other states and talk about Moore v. Harper and what's going on with Moore v. Harper. So December 2022 will be the oral argument will reveal major opposition to this ultimate power grab, because that's what it is. January through May is a long session and redistricting. So basically our state legislatures will go back into session. That's what that means, long session. That's when they'll be putting different bills out on the floor, deciding what they're gonna want to vote on. So that'll be the long session. That's what I'm referring to. So basically fighting back against political attacks and fighting for responsive maps. Because also, like I said, the congressional map is a remedial map, so it will be redrawn. So we'll be looking at that too, like it just doesn't stop, you know, we're gonna keep on going. And then summer 2023 and beyond, that's where the US Supreme Court will most likely rule, and we're gonna see, you know, our response. So we're gonna work around that, just to give you a breakdown of where we're at and where it's going. So,
and we have one more question. Have other states, ooh, is that me? Have other states had the extensive problem in history with this issue? And if not, why do you not think, why is NC so volatile in this regard?
You know, I know there has been, I know it was in Alabama. I don't know everything on the back end of it, but I know it was something about a gerrymandering case that they also took to the US Supreme Court. So I mean, I do think it's some states that this has been an issue in. I know some states we're working on like a independent commission to basically have where the legislatures are not drawing the maps, but we have independent commissioners will be maybe community members, maybe a mix. I mean, it could be a mix where basically drawing maps out of the hands of the legislature, because I know that's the case here. I know some states already have like an independent commission where they're working on basically blending it, where like your state representatives or state legislatures, should I say, are not drawing the maps. But I feel like if the state legislatures are in a place where they're always drawing the maps, I think you're always going to have some type of issue. So the ultimate goal would definitely be an independent commission where we have, I don't know exactly what that will look like, but it may be a mix of like community leaders and just taking it basically out of the hands of the legislatures, because if they can, they're over it and they can also draw their voting districts, you know, it's like one of those things. So
I know it was almost 10 years ago, I think it was the New York Times published pictures of like the 10 most gerrymandered congressional districts. And I think North Carolina had like 2 or 3 of them. And it was, I mean, so it looked like a lot of states had some very gerrymandered districts. But North Carolina seemed to have at least a couple in the top 10. And that was quite a long time ago. And I think they had sort of made a joke about how how extreme some of the districts looked because they were such funny shapes and things.
Yes, we do like to say like we're the ground zero. I guess you would say like we we're the state always. We're working to fight and continue like this fight for fair maps. It seems like we're always like we build it is what we say, and then so we have to build it because our maps we do have that issue, long history of gerrymandered maps. I mean, that's in attacks on voting rights and voting laws here in North Carolina. So,
and just in case anybody doesn't know, could you both define you kind of defined gerrymandering already, but stacking and cracking? There are a couple of gerrymandering terms that just in case people haven't heard those terms before, like what stacking and cracking means in a map. Rotrina, can you hear me? Just want to ask, is anybody else hearing me? Okay. Well, we'll hang on just for a minute and see if Rotrina comes back in. She may have lost. I know sometimes my internet acts funny, so she may have lost it, and we'll give her a second to come back in. But if anybody has any questions, we can gather those up. But and I'm not sure that I can give an explanation. Oh, here we are. Hi, Rotrina.
hello, I'm not sure, it just went out. I was like,
I know,
hello?
I didn't know if I was frozen or if you were frozen.
Yes, I didn't hear anything. And I was like, well, let me stop sharing, so then
well, I had asked, hang on, I'm just making you co-host again so you can share.
Okay.
But I had just asked if you could define stacking and cracking, what that means, just in case anybody hasn't heard that term before.
Okay. Basically, the party in power, in terms of cracking, the party in power basically cracks votes. And in terms of packing, sometimes in terms of gerrymandering, let me say, the party in power packs as many voters in districts. When you crack it, you dilute votes because you're cracking communities, you're cracking the voting power of those communities. Because I mean, literally, when you're cracking, I live here, but across the street, my neighbor could be in a whole different district. That's something that literally happened in Charlotte. Like literally, by the time they rolled out their trash can to the road, they were in a new district. That's cracking a neighborhood and cracking that voting power. Also, I mean, it could be done in the opposite way where voters are being packed into voting districts, which also could dilute their power because then they're being just packed to a district. When and I still feel like you'd be packed into a district, but then the outside it could still be cracking because you're all packed in one district, and may not with that be able to vote for a candidate or a representative of your choice. I hope that.
Yeah. So that would mean
give some examples.
Yeah, and I think there was an example of was it NC State? One of the universities had the district line straight through the middle of the university. So the university, if they were voting for their district, they wouldn't be voting as a whole. They would be split into two different districts. So they didn't have as much weight because it would be very likely that the university would be supporting, candidates that would support the university, for example.
Yes.
So that would be an example of the cracking part.
That's A&T. So that happened at A&T campus. So literally, I think like if you lived in one dorm, or if you was in the cafeteria, from folks I know that have goes to A&T, but you cross the street, then you're in a different district. Or let's say you're in one dorm, then the next semester you're in another dorm, you go across the street, now you're in a different district. So literally A&T was cracked right down, like down the middle of the campus, which it diluted those diluted those votes.
I remember seeing an interview with some students on campus, and I was like, wow, that's really, there was somebody who was like, we're standing right on the line, the district line, like, and here we are, like outside the cafeteria or something like that.
Yep. So yes, and it is also a thing, is I know I talked about packing, I talked about cracking. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it last time, hijacking, they can do that. That's when two districts are redrawn in such a way to force two incumbents to run against each other in one district, ensuring that one of them will be eliminated. So creating districts sometimes where, if you're creating a district and you're able to create a district knowing that it may, heavily cause one incumbent to be eliminated, not be able to either. Yeah, so.
And Billy says Warren Wilson in Asheville used to be cracked in two districts between student dorms too.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. I'm going to write that down. That's good to know.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. And then also you have kidnapping. Moves an incumbent home address into another district. So literally just drawing right out their district. So, yes. So that's another one. I was like, you know what? I didn't bring that up last time.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard those terms hijacking and kidnapping before, but I'll remember them. They're definitely powerful terms.
So, but yes, unfortunately, it's been done. Democrats did it in 2001, heavily gerrymandered maps. Republicans in 2011. So it's on, like we said, it's on both aisles. Both ends have. So, and federal courts determine each of the maps to contain racial gerrymanders, violating the U.S. Constitution. So, unfortunately, both done on both sides. I'll finish sharing this, but then we can also, any other questions, I would be happy to answer. So basically, these are some lessons that we're just working on. Oh, sorry. But I'm gonna actually go here. Basically, connecting the dots of North Carolinians. So these are just some of the great folks in North Carolina who are really out there doing the work. You have Dawn Blagrove with Emancipate NC. She's actually was one of the main lawyers for the 56,000 now folks who can now vote, who were previously like incarcerated. So that's Dawn Blagrove. You have Tara Romano with Pro-Choice North Carolina. And then you have Lamisha Winnington Kaminsky with North Carolina Black Alliance. She does a lot of work around environmental justice and even what that looks like in terms of gerrymandering, because that goes into a lot of what type of funds are able to be given to certain, well, we know, it's a hurricane right now. It's in Florida, but sometimes, we have environmental things that go on here in North Carolina. So gerrymandering affects that. It affects funding, it affects the care of those neighborhoods and those communities and who represents those communities and care about the same thing that they do, that they care about. So we just like to, showcase some of our folks that are definitely doing the work here in North Carolina. So Moore v. Harper is, like we said, is on the ballot. if state legislatures had near absolute power over your federal elections, basically no checks and balances, state legislatures are on the ballot in 2022. They are on the ballot. All our state legislatures are on the ballot. And also, what if state courts still endure constitutional protection? So what if this passes and still endure, constitutional protection. So state judges, including North Carolina Supreme Court justices, are on the ballot in 2022. So both of those are on the ballot for this midterm election. So we're just encouraging folks to get out there and vote, and think of those checks and balances as you go to the poll to vote.
It looks like we have, if this is an okay time, we had a couple questions. And let's see, Ann asked, just so I'm clear, for those bringing the suit, by whom are they arguing the district lines should be drawn? In this case, who should draw the maps? What do they say would be fairest way to draw the lines, and who should check and balance it to best ensure the fairness?
Mm-hmm. Are in terms of who the state legislature is saying should draw the lines or the maps?
By those bringing, well, I guess right now it is the state legislature that is bringing this case to the Supreme Court, and previously it was community groups that brought the case to the North Carolina Supreme Court. So are you asking, Ann, because I would guess the legislature wants to be the only ones to draw for this particular court, the Moore versus, is it Harper?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm at ground zero with this. So I'm just trying to understand it. I guess I was just trying to understand ultimately what is the goal of by whom the district should always be drawn, and whatever party is, it's decided is doing that. How are they going to ensure that there's somebody else double checking it to keep it fair? I think that's what I'm not clear on.
Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, so basically, the party in power usually draws the district. So basically, the state legislature draws the district, draws the districts. That's how it is in North Carolina. And unfortunately, in order to if they're drawing the districts and we find them to be basically unfair maps, is no other way to do right now in the state of North Carolina but to go to our to take it to court. So we've been to court a lot, So basically with that, if with Moore v. Harper, they want to take the power for even the court to say, okay, this map is not found to be unconstitutional for the North Carolina's Constitution. The court can bring in a special master. So the court would decide who to bring in to redo these maps, to redraw the maps. But if the state court's power is taken away, it would be nobody. We would take what the legislature provides. That's where did that help, Ann?
It did. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I know there's another question after mine in the chat as well from somebody else.
And in that one, Billy asked, were the maps that the NC Supreme Court just rejected the ones that were drawn for the 2020 redistricting cycle?
Were they? I'm sorry. Were they?
Were the maps that the Supreme Court rejected? Were they the maps that were drawn for the 2020 redistricting or after the 2020 census?
Yes, it was those maps that were rejected. Yes, and we're talking about the congressional map here, but they end up accepting. Basically the state legislature had to redraw the state maps too, but they accepted those. So that's why we're here at the congressional map. I just want to point that out too.
So there were two different sets of maps that were redrawn, and one
Yes.
set was accepted and the other set was sent to a special master.
Yes, which was the congressional map.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Those are great questions.
It is, yes.
It's really
great.
complicated. I mean, it's really complex.
It is. It's a lot, like you said, a lot of information, a lot to like where we were and where we are now. I know, Rachel, you're like, what? All this happened? You know, it's like all this happened in a couple of months. So
Yeah, true.
yes. So we just want to definitely remind people to register to vote. Well, if you can definitely do early voting, you know, and register in person when you do early voting. We put October 14th, if you're out, like we do voter registration drives. So if we're out doing voter registration, the last day to do that and like submit the forms is October 14th. I just don't want you all to get confused on the dates. But after that, you definitely can do early voting where you can go in person and register on the same date, same day, and vote on the same day. We also have a North Carolina voter guide. It is a nonpartisan voter guide. So everyone who's running, we have the state voter guide and we have the Mecklenburg County voter guide. I will be getting those to all the Charlotte Meck libraries. Thank you, Rachel, for that as well. So hopefully within the next week or two, I'm waiting on the Mecklenburg County guides to come in. So our state guides are already in. We're finishing up the Mecklenburg County guides. And I will be getting those to the libraries. So hopefully soon, all the Charlotte Meck libraries will have our voter guides. You can also look at our voter guides online. I can put the information in the chat too. But it's a digital version as well. So it should have everyone that's running on the state level and then also our local elections for Mecklenburg County. So just want to put that out there. And of course, election day, November 8th. For North, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right, Anne has the question, does your group do endorsements or an endorsement sheet or just a guide to whom's on the ballot?
We just do a guide because we're nonpartisan. We don't like endorse candidates or anything. We provide all the information, so we don't. Yeah, because not Common Cause is a nonpartisan organization.
Thank you.
More we educate. That's what I say. On just what's going on and inform voters, you know, and get people registered to vote and out to the polls. So we don't have to do that one. So basically, we do have like a MORE pledge. You can take the MORE pledge basically to basically talk about it. Also, we can continue to send information about what's going on with the case, what our next steps are. We also have resources on it. I can also, I don't know, Rachel, I can provide these slides to everyone. If you have their emails, I can send it to you. You're welcome to send these slides to everyone that's on this on Zoom tonight. Yes, I can do that. I'll make sure I get that to you. We can host another People Politics event. We've been all over the state. It's an event every day until October 22nd right now. So we've been rolling from here all the way to like Dare County, all the way on the coast. So we're in Rowan County as well tonight. So if anyone likes to write, definitely write a letter to your editor would be great as well. So I'll put these links also in the chat, but I'll also follow up with the email to share. So you'll have all this, Rachel, to share with everyone. You don't have to remember it all tonight.
And to anybody who is in the group, I know Common Cause will do this program, and even we a couple of months ago did the really basic program on what gerrymandering is. And so if anybody has a group that they would want to ask Common Cause to lead a discussion or give a program on what gerrymandering is, then just be aware that I I reached out to Rotrina for exactly that reason. So
Yes, I definitely, thank you. I'll definitely be willing to do that as well.
yeah, they're a great community resource. So, and I know Rotrina a little bit from the library too. So I was really excited that she was our person to do our presentation. Rotrina, thank you so much. And it really is a ton of information. And if you have links for the chat, or if you want to send links to me, then I can send them out. Does anybody have any questions to follow up? It looks like I think you may have gotten most of them as we went along.
Okay. And I'm also going to do, I didn't put this in here. We are doing our Stifle Challenge. So it's basically our donor, Todd Stifle, has pledged a dollar for dollar match for up to 100,000 for all donations for Common Cause. So I'll send that if you're interested. All funding will go to this Moore v. Harper fight and advancing policies and programming to put people over politics. So that is also something that we have. So I'm gonna provide the resources, and I'll provide this as well. So just if you're interested.
And we had one comment that Anne just said, thank you for doing this, especially on Zoom for those of us far away from your branch.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we can reach more people this way.
Yes, that is true.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Do you want me to hang out for just a minute to put things in the chat, or shall I just send things out?
I was gonna put things in the chat. I was,
okay, I'll wait just a minute before we close out or anything so that you guys can get the chat.
I know it's
great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. For a lot of people are saying thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And Annie, those voter guides will probably get out to Mountain Island too, just so you know that we'll send them through our distribution channel, which sends them to all 20 branches. So.
Mm-hmm. Let me get this.
And they're also online for those of you out near Asheville too.
Yes.
And I really like hearing those new terms that I've never heard, the hijacking and kidnapping.
Oh, yes.
Those are very dramatic terms. The packing and cracking are pretty dramatic too.
Yes. That's if we do have other events, thank you. I'm gonna put that in the chat. If we're in another place or neighborhood near you, you can definitely join. A lot of them, they try to do both virtual and in person. So.
And Billy asked, do you think there is any chance of NC creating a nonpartisan citizens commission for drawing up the district maps?
I think it can be. I think it's gonna take a lot of work. I know some states have like a ballot initiative where they can put this on the ballot. Unfortunately, North Carolina doesn't. So that's, another fight. But we're working on it, making incremental steps, to get to that. But that'll definitely be, the major thing that we would like. Because I just think it's just really hard for people, you to draw your own voting district, so.
And it's also, I think, hard to keep up with how many complicated aspects of our voting system there are, to sort of keep an eye on. You don't really know what things affect the vote. And most of us are honestly so busy with our ordinary lives that we can't study politics that closely.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot, it really is. But yeah, I'll put my information in there too. Okay. But that's all I have. I think I have everything in there.
Okay, guys, and I will, if anybody takes a look, there are the NC voter guide and Rotrina's contact information are in the chat right now, if you want to take a quick look. And Rotrina, I want to thank you and Common Cause so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was a very different program than last time. It was really something. And I really want to thank everybody who's attending. And I apologize again for my dog. He's a cranky old guy.
Yeah.
But thank you for coming, everybody. And I hope to see you all at the library soon.
Thank you. Really great questions.